Hey everyone, I'm back and today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And this movie came out in 2005 and it's directed by George Lucas once again. And it stars Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Ian McDiarmid, Samuel L. Jackson, and the list just goes on. And most people seem to feel as though this one out of the prequels is the best one. And I would agree with that. This is the best one. Would I say this is good? Unfortunately, no. It's better, just not good. It's improved. It has the strengths, if we want to call them that, of what the prequels had. And I do feel as though that the effects in this movie are better than episodes 1 and 2. They're improved, and I felt as though that the action was better paced in this movie as opposed to the previous two movies. And this movie is 2.5 hours long, and it doesn't really need to be that long. It could have been at least a half hour shorter, and it would have been much better, because there are plenty of scenes that just don't really need to be in the movie, and there are so many things that are just communicated in a very slow way, and there's just not a whole lot being progressed after the opening action sequence, I guess, if we're going to call it that. And the action in this movie does go on for a while, and I'm kind of happy about that, because for a movie that's almost 2.5 hours long, like, at the very least, you should get quite a bit of action, especially in a movie that is, like, setting up something, like, really dark, and, like, Anakin's whole turn to the dark side, and it's like you're kind of expecting it, and it does give you that, and it's not as poorly shot as 1 or 2. And when it came to the action, like, there were some shots that were not way too close, and I'm not saying it was great, but it was an improvement to say the least. And the music in this movie helps the film out a lot, just like the previous two prequel movies. And the, I guess, relationship with Anakin and Padme, they're married now, and like that whole stuff, like, in episode 2, their relationship was just cringe, and I couldn't stand it at all. But in this movie, somehow I found it hilarious, and I was laughing at basically every line that they were delivering to each other, because they just looked so awkward, and I was like, you don't look comfortable delivering these lines. And it was very distracting, and a lot of the acting isn't very good in this movie. Out of the 3 prequel movies, I would say this one's probably the funniest, in the sense that it was hilariously bad. And the last 30 minutes, it's so funny to me. I loved it. And I kind of almost died laughing because I just found it so funny. Unfortunately, there is a huge gap in this movie that I just found to be really boring, where there isn't really any action going on. It's mostly just characters talking, nothing's happening, and that was pretty boring, but that was about half of the movie for me, and the rest of the movie was kind of entertaining, like, ironically speaking. And sure, there are a couple good elements to it. Like, I still like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ian McDiarmid as the Emperor. I like those two. Those two work for me, and you get quite a bit of screen time with those two characters, and I feel as though that helps out this movie a lot. Unfortunately, what this movie is also missing is the basics of a good story. And the story doesn't really work for me, and it takes forever for it to get going, and a lot of it is just setting up for the end, and not a whole lot is going on in the plot. And there weren't really any characters that I latched onto. I just find them to be kind of boring and uninteresting, and they're not really developed either, and they're just, what you see is all that you know about these characters, and what you see is them just flinging a lightsaber around, and they can use the Force, and they talk in basically the same tone as everyone else does, and it's kind of annoying, and there's not much to them. There are also some characters in this movie that are completely pointless in this movie, and really to the entire trilogy, this entire prequel trilogy. And Count Dooku, he's in the movie for like 5-10 minutes at most, and he has nothing to do. And General Grievous, he basically has nothing to do. And a lot of the characters are like that. And I feel as though if there were less characters in this movie, then maybe you could flesh them out and give them some characterization. Not just to this movie, but also in the previous two movies. Like, if there were less characters, then it could have been balanced out a lot better, but that's not what we got here. Instead, it's just trying to be a sci-fi action movie, and also the prequel to A New Hope, and finally showing off Darth Vader. Like, it's trying to be so many things at once, but it just doesn't know how to properly get to point A to point B. And I kind of feel as though, like, the story of what I wanted started with this movie, like, in terms of the origin story of Darth Vader. Like, it's kind of in this movie, really, and not so much the other two movies. Despite me getting somewhat of something that I wanted, I'm still not satisfied with what we got in the end. And the only real enjoyment I get from this movie are just the really funny parts, where it wasn't even trying to be funny. And the rest of the movie is kind of just okay action, good music, and kind of boring for the rest of it. And that's pretty much all what the movie is. It's funny bad, you get some action, boring scenes, and that's all there is to it, and good music. So unfortunately, I cannot recommend that you check episode 3 out. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. I could probably rewatch it just to revisit the really funny parts, but overall, it's just not a good movie. It's an improvement over the previous two, but that's not saying a whole lot because those two movies are not good at all. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Star Wars Episode 3 a 3 out of 10. Kind of fitting. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below you thought of Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. And my social media links, they will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Epic, spelled EPOCH. And I'll explain why I decided to watch this movie when I review it, so look forward to that. But until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.